All right, everyone, welcome back to the Seven Figure Seller Summit live masterclass series. Today, I'm super excited to have Jérôme from e-commerce. How's it going, Jérôme?
I'm great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And today, it's kind of a special live training that we're going to have. Jérôme is going to show you how to expand to Amazon Europe. Um, Especially right now, post Brexit, there's so many changes going on. So he's really going to give you the inside look how to do things right when you want to expand your business to Amazon Europe. Okay. And because we are live, if you can see and hear us, could you please type in the chat your name and where you're joining us from? And we would appreciate that. Okay. And this is actually the first time that we're doing this at a time that's more friendly to our European audience. So I'm kind of excited to see like who's going to show up. Maybe we'll get some new faces. All right. So please type your name and where you're joining us from. So I'd like to quickly introduce Jérôme first before we begin. So Jérôme is the founder and managing director of e-commerce made simple. And he's an Amazon expert with 20 years of experience in brand management and distribution, and with a really inside out knowledge of how Amazon works. And Jerome and his team of e-commerce experts, they work with major multinational brands to really develop strong Amazon strategies. And also he helps coach their management and operations to help carry them to success. So I was having a chat several weeks ago, and I know that Jerome really has a lot of inside information. He'd like to help you guys, especially I know a lot of you guys may not be selling EU yet, and we had a lot of pre-submitted questions about Brexit, about VAT, about selling in EU and setting up a company. So he's going to cover a lot, but I'd love to make this interactive. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop that in the chat. Okay. And then meanwhile, I'd like to quickly welcome a couple of people that are joining us live. Welcome to Ben from London and Sharon from Brisbane. Good day. And Grant from New Zealand. So excellent. We have a pretty global audience so far. All right. So without further ado, Jerome, I'd like to turn things over to you. And would you like to begin the show?
It was a great pleasure. And we've got even people from Luxembourg. Welcome, Antonio and Sandy, also from Delhi. So that I'm super excited to have this wide audience. And like COVID has it's been like a tough thing for all of us, but it's also now we have so many occasions to see so many people through thanks to technology. And fun fact, I just like an hour ago I got my first shot of the COVID vaccine. So if you see my eyes start to shine too much and me getting too much off track, so Gary, do do you bring me back here? So like today is for us a topic we've been talking about for a long time. Actually, Brexit has been a bit of a drama. COVID has sort of made people forget, but it was a topic for like 2 or 3 years nearly now, and it has some impact on the way we're doing business, on the way you can approach Europe and doing business in Europe. So the idea today is really to go over what it means and share what we've been doing and how we've helped brands navigate that, and what we believe are the best strategies to go around or to make them not being hurt too much by the changes on Brexit. So if anybody's got questions, I'll be happy to. So Gary will help me also with the questions, but you do ask them as soon as you want, and I'll be happy to do my best to answer all of them. So the topic here is really Brexit, Amazon, and therefore very much Europe. So 2 words about ourselves. E-commerce is an agency which is primarily based in Europe. We have an office also in India. We've got a big team which is speaking, I think, more than 15 languages now. And obviously all the European languages. We often brag that we have more than 100 years experience on Amazon and e-commerce in general through all of the team. And we help brands from setting their strategies to implementing, handling their accounts, and to doing all the advertising side. So that's about us. And we help a lot of brands from the US expand into Europe. And to be fair, some brands in Europe to expand in Europe, but also in the US. So we have this approach. We have also brands expanding in India, in Japan, or in Australia on Amazon. So we can share a lot of, if you have questions about other areas too. So enough about us and a bit about Europe and what we're talking about. I know I've seen on the questionnaire there were a lot of people which were coming from the US. So I like to share this map of if you were taking all the states of the United States and you were putting them into Europe, you can see that actually Europe is bigger than the US. It doesn't cover all of Spain, for example, and you've got some countries which are left. For example, Sweden, which is an Amazon country, is not covered. And it's just to give an idea that actually the European market is bigger than the American market altogether. The thing is, the big difference is that you have different languages, some different currencies altogether, and that each country separately you have to break into. So the main difference that although in the US you would grow much quicker, you can lose much quicker also. In Europe, you have to build like country by country patiently. But once you're inside, it's very difficult to get you out first because someone has to go through that country by country approach. That if you like lose or if a big competitor comes in one country, you've got still the others to protect yourself. So there's an element of Europe being so many different markets, and with all those complexities, for those who understand it and can control it in a way, they will be in a strong position. Because we've been with brands in the US, if you have all of a sudden a strong competitor comes and you lose a buy box in the US, like all of a sudden, poof, you lose everything. In Europe, you will lose a buy box maybe in the UK or maybe in France, but not in Germany. So you have this thing which will be a much more balanced thing. And Brexit or not Brexit, it still gives you this huge opportunity of a huge market, which is also much like easier to control. Now, if we look at the Amazon side, which is the graph on the right, is that even though that's 2017, it's more or less the same. It's like the biggest market in Europe is Germany for Amazon, clearly by far, and the second one is the UK. The other ones are quite far away. So you have those two major ones, then you will have France, then Italy and Spain are battling, and then below you will have the Netherlands and Sweden, and now Poland, which are starting. And Turkey will be a bit behind. So that's sort of the landscape of where you are and who are the most important markets you want to be in. Now, if we go a bit into a bit more details, that's the same map, so that's a fun fact. But what I wanted to show here is that the political environment of Europe is a bit complicated because you have some countries with the same currency, the euro. You have some countries which are parts of the European Union, and you have some countries which are friends and are inside the custom area. And those three realities are different. So navigating Europe, it can be complex. And you can see that the European Union in blue is quite a big custom zone. Now, the big difference is that the UK got out of that custom zone. And that means in terms of importing, for example, that if your products are in Europe, for example, in mainland Europe, and you send them to the UK, you will have custom duties. Now, if you have a product which has gone once through the customs, normally if it's Europe-based, once it's done, it's done. What the complication comes if your product are coming from China. If you send them to Germany, you will have to pay customs in Germany. If you send them again afterwards to UK, you will have to pay a double time customs. So it has complicated the supply chain part, and sense that if your products are outside of the Europe, you will have to ship one part to mainland Europe, so that could be Germany, France, Italy, Spain, or Sweden, and one part has to go to the UK differently. Otherwise, you can't move from one country to another without having some customs and duties and going through customs again. So that makes a big difference, because before, the UK being in the same sort of customs area, you didn't need to do that. So in terms of planning, you need to think about, okay, the UK is like a different continent a bit, like where you have new customs and new duties and new VAT stuff. Okay, so that's the first thing you need to be careful about. Gary,
Jerome, can I
yeah.
ask a quick question? I think that's a very important fact to consider. And if I understand correctly, after Brexit, UK is considered just totally outside of EU, right? So let's say if you ship your products, um, let's say from China to UK, and previously you could fulfill from UK, right, to all the different European countries, but now it's out. So when you said that you would have to pay like a double tax if I wanted to move those products from UK to like Germany, for example, like how much would that be? Would it be like the VAT, or how much would that be?
No, so that's a $1 million question. That depends on your product category. So it
Right.
could be anything from 3% to 10 to 15. It depends on the customs tariff of your category.
Okay.
So the
I
thing
see.
is that
Yeah.
how it's like, in a sense, Brexit is it's a bit of a joke, because the fact that UK, the agreement they came with is that UK said, okay, we are getting out, but like 90% we will follow the same rules. How they handle the island thing is that they say, okay, the only way is that, okay, we say we're out, but actually we follow exactly the same rules. We just put maybe a different name. So the thing is, probably the custom tariffs will be more or less the same. All the rules are more or less exactly the same. They just put it in a different name. One example is you have a CE marking, which is for all electrical products. They've done like C was the one which was used by everyone. Now the UK created a CA. I think it's UKCA. So it's exactly the same. There's no difference, just a different name. So on your packaging, you will have to print CE and UKCA if you want to be able. And I think you have 1 year to do that. That's like administration kind of thing, because the rules are more or less the same. It's just it's saying, okay, we're outside, but they committed to follow the same rules, actually.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's good to know. Thanks. Let's keep going.
Indeed. So if I go, and that pertains a bit to the question you had. So if you look at, as a seller, what are your different fulfillment options? Your first option would be Pan EU, which was which was happening before. The only thing is today, Pan EU doesn't include the UK. What is Pan EU? Pan EU is basically you decide you have one country where you put your products, and you say to Amazon, okay, you can handle the stock whichever way you want, and you can send products all over Europe in my name, and that's okay. The complication here is that you need to have VAT numbers in every country where your stock is. So when you enable Pan EU, you need to have the 7 VAT numbers, basically, or the 6, because you have Germany, Poland, Czech Republic, France, Italy, Spain, the Netherlands. They has no stock, so at the beginning you don't need it. But basically, that's the numbers you will have, and probably Sweden as you go along. So that's the first option where you say, and it's the best option for consumers, basically, because with Pan EU you enable Amazon to give that 1-day delivery promise, because otherwise, if your product is in Germany and you want to deliver to Spain, there's no way you can get that in 1 day, because it's too complicated to go through the borders and everything. So that's probably a 3 days delivery, and as you know, the 1-day delivery is a big promise. So if you want to, the best like customer facing option is this Pan EU one. It has some complications because you need to make sure that you have all those VATs in the different countries. Talking about Spain, welcome Lindsay, who's from Spain. The second one is the option I was describing is EFN, which stands for European Fulfillment Network. Basically, you say, okay, I put it in Germany, and I ship it to every country. I don't want to have stock in every country, because I don't want to have VAT numbers everywhere. I want to have one country, and I'll talk about it. There's an implication for VAT, and I'll talk about it on next slide. But the idea here is you say, okay, I use one as a hub. And for example, that's a good option when you say, okay, my main market is Germany. Or, for instance, we're helping a brand which is selling accessories for swimming pools. Okay, swimming pools are mostly sold in the south of Europe, right? So you could say, okay, I base myself in France or in Spain because that's where I want to be, and the other markets are much smaller. Okay, so that's a second option. And the third one actually is you need to look at the UK separately. And the UK, either you stay in the UK and you address only the UK, or you can use also the UK to ship in other countries. The thing is that that's very complicated because you have to go through customs every time. So the best option actually is you have UK for itself, and then you either use EFN or Pan EU for the rest of Europe. And our recommendation, like if you are customer facing in terms of best customer services, having one warehouse in the UK and one Pan EU. So, and starting, for example, from Germany, if your warehouse is in Germany or in Holland, that's probably the best option for customers, like the way you will please most customers. However, it's most complex to put in place, obviously, because you've got this VAT and logistics things where you have to ship products to the UK and you have to ship products to Europe or to one of the countries in Europe. Anybody's got any questions on the fulfillment options? If not, I'll go on. I can still go back to it because the next point is one which is super important and quite complicated, which is VAT. So you need to know that Europe likes being a bit complex, and because each country wants to run their own show in a sense. So in terms of business, that makes it a bit complicated. So first is that the VAT rates can be different from one country to another. That's the first thing you need to know. And they evolve. For example, last year, Germany decided to reduce their VAT to boost sales during COVID, specifically sales of cars, because VAT, like 2 points of VAT on a car is a big amount, right? So they wanted to support the automotive industry, so they reduced it. So for a certain period of time, it was 19% instead of 21%. And it's like it's 20 or 21. I always have to check because you can see it's like you have to keep on top of the numbers. But that's typically okay. As a seller, you need to say, okay, do I adjust my price when it's moving 2%? What do I do? So that's typically okay. The questions you could have when you're selling into Europe. To be fair, it doesn't happen every year. That was very specific, but each country will still have a different VAT number. That's the first thing. The second thing you have to note, especially if you're from the US, that will be a surprise to you, that in Europe, all prices which are displayed are always with VAT. When a European goes into a shop in the US, he's always surprised because he sees a price tag and then he goes to pay, and then the amount is higher than on the price tag, and say, what happened? Like, what? And so in Europe, it never happens. The price tag always includes VAT. So that means when you're putting your price in your seller account, you're including VAT. So you need to know how much VAT is for each country, and you need to adjust depending on your country. And some countries, like Northern Europe, for example, Denmark, have 25% VAT. The rest normally are around 20%. But that you need to be careful and to check before you set your prices. That's the two first things. Now, how the process works is that the rule for VAT is that you are due to pay VAT in the area in your country where you stock your products. So if you stock your products in Germany and you sell to a Spanish customer, you will be deemed to pay VAT or to repay VAT to the government in Germany, because the stock is based in Germany. Now, if you put a stock in Germany and a stock in Spain, and the Spanish customer buys in Spain, you need to declare VAT in Spain. That means you need to have a VAT number, and that's a big process because each country has a different process to give you a VAT number. And to give you an example, Italy, you would get it within 1 week. UK, probably two weeks if everything goes well. And up to the most complicated one, which is probably Spain, which could take 6 months. So you need to understand that, okay, so if you decide to do Pan EU, that probably will take you, between 3 to 6 months before you can really do that pan-EU thing. So selling in Europe means a lot of retro planning and preparation, right? Now, you can, in the short term, still say, okay, I stay in Germany and I sell from my products from Germany, for example. Because this rule of, okay, you declare the VAT in the country where you are. Now, in terms of the process of how the VAT is paid, is Amazon will pay the VAT directly to the government. So Amazon collects, let's say you're selling a phone, right? You sell phones and or whatever, this piece, and it sells for 10 euros net, 12 euros with VAT. The 2 euros, Amazon will keep the VAT, the 2 euro VAT will keep and give it back to the government. So you don't have to worry about paying it back to the government. What you need to worry about is you need to file it. So the government will expect you to file, okay, tell the government, I gave you, so you received 2 euros in my name in terms of VAT. That's where, so these are the two things. You need to create a VAT number or ask for a VAT number. And then you need to file that those VAT reports. And depending on the country, it could be on a monthly basis or it could be on a quarterly basis. Okay, so these are the basic principles. And if anything is unclear, you can ping a question. But so that's for the principle. Now, there's been a change which is happening on the 1st of July. And they call it the one-stop shop. I think that so. Europe has decided to simplify its VAT process. In which sense is that now, if you're selling from, if you decide to base yourself in only one country, you will be able to declare VAT for all of Europe in that country. Before, like actually today, if you're based in in Germany, and you're selling in every countries, there was thresholds. That means if you were selling into France, after some amount, so it depends, every country is different, could be 50 to 100,000 per year, you had to declare VAT even if you didn't hold stock. So the European Union said, okay, let's simplify, which honestly is a great news. So basically with this one-stop shop thing is that you say, okay, however big or my turnover is in other countries, if my stock is based in Germany, I need only to declare in Germany and I don't need any other VAT numbers. So if you were to decide to stay in one country, that simplifies your process very greatly. And the idea is that specifically if you're starting and you don't have so many funding, or you want to simplify your whole process, you can use that and say, okay, let's start in one big country, for example, Germany, but that's a big one, and focus on this one and do all the sales from this country. And that's thanks to the one-stop shop thing. Now, this one-stop shop only works if you select the EFN option, the option with only one warehouse. So if we come back to here, it only works in the option 2. In the option 1, if you remember the first rule, if you have stock located in a different country, you can't do the one-stop shop. Because basically you're locating the stock and VAT is due where the last stock basically is based and sent to the end consumer. So those two options are made even stronger with this new rule that the EFN option is a very simple one, less customer friendly because you have longer delivery windows for the end consumer. If you're based in Germany and you want to deliver to south of Spain, it takes time. Any question? I think, Gary, you had one, no?
Yeah, Jérôme, I was going to ask about the distance selling thresholds, and you did answer that somewhat. And in terms of the change, I think this is very interesting on July 1st. And I saw that you said, so let's say we're doing EFN, European Fulfillment Network. We're going to send all of our inventory into Germany, for example. So previously, I understood I only needed to file VAT in Germany, and then for the other countries, so long as I'm under that distance selling threshold, whatever it is for each country, I don't need to register for VAT in those other countries. I only needed to register for Germany, right?
That's correct.
Okay. So now, what has changed? Are those distance selling thresholds, are they still valid, or is it unlimited and I can sell like $1 million in France and I still don't have to register for VAT? What has changed specifically?
So it's exactly what you said. Is basically, let's say, in the like, if you were making like several millions in the US and say, okay, this my product has big potential in Europe, and if you enter and you say, okay, very quickly I will get to more than 100,000 per country, but you still want to be based in one country. Before, you had to say, okay, like, of course I need to start the process of getting VAT numbers because it takes time. But now, as you said, it's limitless. So you could, if you stay in Germany and whatever, like, you could do millions in France.
Yeah.
That's okay. You only need to declare in Germany, which makes it, to be honest, much easier.
Yeah.
And somehow the European Union is sort of doing something between themselves and saying, okay, don't worry, we'll reconcile it ourselves.
I see. All right. That sounds like good news then. That sounds like it will make things a little more simple. I mean, not make everything simple, but it sounds like, that's good news. All right.
It's an element of simplification. The only question is, and to be fair, most of the brands still want to go to Pan EU because that's the best customer experience. Because if your competitors have got prime one-day delivery everywhere in Europe, you might say, okay, if people are getting so used to get that one-day delivery that, for example, I'm based in France and Amazon in France is less big than in Germany. So a lot of products are coming from outside of France. And sometimes I get 3 days delivery and like, probably 20 years ago, I would have been super happy with 3 days. But now it's like, wow, 3 days, that's not, I'll probably take another product with a one-day delivery. So
that makes sense.
A lot of the brands with potential will say, yeah, you know what, we'll still invest. So when you're looking at investing for getting a pan-European VAT service, let's say it will be anything between 6, 7, 8,000 euros a year for all the countries, right? So if you're about to make millions, that's probably an investment you can do. And the thing is, okay, you need to follow up on the different details and reconciliation and stuff. But if your brand has got potential, most of the brands will say, yeah, no, I still want to do Pan EU.
Yeah, makes sense. All right. I see we have a question from Sandeep. In EFN, if a return happens and Amazon fulfills that order from a warehouse where we don't have VAT, then do we have to file VAT return for that return?
So now that's a very well done, Sandeep. Very good question. And that's a tricky one. And that's because Amazon it's a big machine and it's not always very thorough. So one of the issues you can have, like, returns normally is okay. Amazon will handle the return on the FBA part. You don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about, and that happens, is that typically, let's say you've got your stock in Germany and you've decided to be EFN, you've closed all the other countries' FBA routes. You sell to a French customer, for example. The French customer buys your product, didn't like it, sends it back to Amazon. Amazon says, cool, it took the product and say, okay, it's in good shape, I can resell it. And by its own accord, it decides to sell it into France. Or, like, another customer is buying it and the system sees, I have a SKU in France, which is on the return thing. Let's send that to him. Even though you've decided you didn't want to sell to France, right? Or you didn't want to sell directly to France. And then all of a sudden you're in a situation where the French government will say, you've sold the product which was located, based and stored in France, so you're due for VAT. And that's a tricky situation which can happen, and we've seen that. And honestly, Amazon is not very thorough on that, and they don't really care because they are not the ones who are in charge of, or are liable for that VAT stuff. So in this situation, normally you need to declare, get a VAT number and declare it in France, because the French government could go after you and make Amazon close your account, for example. So, or Amazon might even close themselves the account saying, you've had a sale in France and you don't have a VAT number in the seller account. So, and that's typically where you start to say, wow, that's one of those crazy stories you get only with Amazon, because the system, like they have different systems working with different targets. So normally, so my response is like, normally when returns comes, you don't need to worry. The only problem is that if Amazon keeps it in France and sell it, that can be a problem.
Yeah. Is there a way that you can turn that option off, or you can, destroy all of the returns? I know that. What do you say to that, Jérôme, in your experience?
Like you can decide to ask them to destroy like defective returns or returns which are working. The problem is that Amazon is not transparent on the returns which are, because sometimes they do wholesale deals that they're not very transparent on what's happening there.
That's true.
So to be fair, the safest way is just like, for example, you're in Germany and you decide to sell only to Germany. That's you're losing potential. Yeah. So for me, that's why the one-stop shop is a great thing. But end of the day, the system will push you in a way to be pan-EU. So like you've got two options. Is either your market is very like country specific. Like we have a customer who's selling lamps, a specific design which really works well in Germany, but the other countries never sold it. It's like in this case, you say, okay, you might as well focus on your own country and build that a success. If you believe, which to be fair, in 95% of the case it's true, if you believe that your market is actually in all of Europe, like the Amazon system is not reliable enough in a sense to be very like thorough, as I said. And you could say, okay, then you make a step-by-step approach with saying, okay, when should I start in which country? And then I plan that, and you just grow step by step.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. It's like one of the risks of doing business, right? I mean, without any risk, you're not going to get out on the reward for all of those other, potential businesses and countries. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And thanks, Sandy, for that question. That was very insightful. All right, Jérôme, shall we keep going?
Yes, we will. So, and that's sort of a bit of a wrap up and what we would recommend for everyone wanting to expand into Europe. You've got, and I've given some tips already, but for me, you've got two sort of, I've given two very different options. Obviously, you've got different shades of gray in both of them. So the first one is like the longer term one, the one where you say, okay, we've got a big potential. We really want to address the European market. So in this case, as I said, it can take from 1 to 6 months. And we know very well because we have our own seller account in Europe. So we've gone through the process. So we've gone through all those tedious steps of getting that VAT number, and that's complicated. So the idea would be to say, okay, you target UK and Germany because these are the two big countries where you want to send stock to, and you start to do the process to acquire VAT numbers, and EURI number is the number you will get once you get the first VAT number to do imports. So you select those two, you get VAT number in the UK first because that's easier, and you rush to get the German one, and you start from there. And then as soon as you unlock the different countries with the VAT numbers, you start to expand, and just take it one step at a time and send stock little by little, just to test to see how things are going. So the long-term thing is you focus on those two big pillars, UK, Germany. You send stock there and you build from there, let's say, and with a view to be pan-EU compliant, let's say, or with the pan-EU system. Now, if you really want to rush, like I want to go in Europe and I want to be there on the 1st of July selling, that's possible. The way to do it short term, and it can take 15 days, is you use Italy. So you can, Italy is the simplest country to get into in terms of Amazon. So you create your account, you list your products, you ask for VAT, it takes like a week, more or less. You send your products. When you send your products, they give you a URI number already. That's very, very streamlined. So in 15 days, you can have your products into your account in Seller, and you can start to sell using EFN. And that's super simple. Specific, like the last months or two, Germany has had a lot of issues with warehousing because they don't have enough space. So they've issued new rules. So they're asking people to send less stock because they're having troubles. We have a lot of situations where people have sent a truck, the truck couldn't deliver, was sent back, and that's specifically Germany. Italy is much smaller. You don't get these problems. So it's much easier, and so you can go very quickly. In those two big countries, the UK and Germany, like we've had situation from, for example, in the UK, because of Brexit, the customer had sent a container from South Africa and it got blocked. They had to send the container back to South Africa and again send it. So obviously we were out of stock for a long time and you lose enormous sales. So Europe is a big potential and you can win. But you need to have a strategy of step by step. It's focusing on one country, being successful, preparing for the next one, and once you've got a bit of meat on your bone, basically you go on the second one. Excellent. And that's so that would be the wrap up of what I wanted to share. Most like you, but I see we have questions.
Sorry to interrupt. That was a great recommendation. I like how you broke it down between long term and like a fast track short term strategy. And we have a question from Con Kip, who asked, what is the cost for VAT and AORI numbers in EU and UK? And I would like to ask, what is the time? What's the amount of time it takes for these as well for EU and UK?
So the costs. So basically, if you look at whole of Europe, depending on who, there are a lot of good companies which are doing that. We do that also. We have partners with whom we work, and we can deliver that. Basically, whole of Europe would be between 6,000 and 8,000, and country by country, you would be anything depending on the complexity between 1,000 to 2,500 euros a year. That's basically per country. How you get, the more countries you get, the more bundled prices you have. UK would take a very short time, so like 2 weeks. Germany, as I said, it's more about 3 months. France is on that path also. Spain is very complicated because they ask notary documents which you have to go to a notary to send to them, and that's so that depending on your side, that's more work for you. So that takes from 3 to 6 months. So in total, you can get the first ones within the first months, and then a big bulk within 3 to 4 months, and the rest within the 6 months. Costs, you can 6,000 to 8,000 in total. To get the VAT numbers is not very expensive. It's a filing which takes time, and you need to have a certified people who accountants which will do the filing every month for you to the authorities.
So you have to file every month. You have to file every for the filing. Let's say for Germany, for example, how often do you need to file?
So month? Germany is only monthly. A lot of other countries are quarterly. So UK can be quarterly. As far as I remember, France is quarterly. The others, to be fair, I can't remember. But it's that's why the cost can be different, because the the authorities will have different rules. URI numbers, it will come immediately, automatically, once you have your VAT number. Basically, you need to make sure when you're working with someone giving you the VAT number is that they need to provide you the URI number. And so, to be fair, the quickest country to get a URI number was Luxembourg, because it took me half a day, because we're based in Luxembourg, and I asked for a URI number. And the URI number, you need only one for mainland Europe and only one for UK. So, for example, if you started in Germany and the German government gave you a URI number, that works for the whole of Europe, or Spain, for example, or Italy, that works for the whole of Europe. So you don't need to ask for multiple URI numbers. You only one for mainland Europe and one for the UK.
Yeah. Okay. So there was a question from Sandeep, and Sandeep asked, "Can you apply for URI in Germany with your VAT number?" But I think Sandeep kind of got it mixed up. Like, you should you get the ERI first and then get the
No,
VAT?
no. You ask for your VAT number, and they only provide a ERI number if you got a VAT number.
Oh, okay. All right.
Because what happens is when you import, you want to link because you will be paying taxes and VAT on those taxes, on customs duties and stuff, and you want to link those costs with your VAT number so that you can sort of get back those costs in a sense.
Okay, makes sense. All right, thanks. We had a question from RM. Yes, the replay will be available later, so you can definitely check that out. And I know some people in the US, it's very early; they're probably still in bed. So for our American friends, you can catch the replay as well. And a follow-up question from Konkip: do you need fiscal representation for VAT filing in each country?
Well, that's part of it. So the service and the fees I was talking about, that's exactly that. It's a fiscal representation with like a fiscal address, basically, which will be provided by by if it's us, like providing you that service to make sure that the government has an address. They can, reach out to someone and say, okay, there's a legal representative in that country for that aspect.
Okay, great. And we have a question from Grant. If you start with two countries, say UK and Germany, and operate pan-EU, is it a requirement to have product labeled in German for Germany and English for UK for the same ASIN?
So yeah, all countries in the world will tend to ask for labels, at least in their own language, and instruction manuals in their own language. Depending on your category and what the type of product you have, it will be more or less enforced or mandatory, right? So the idea is that if you want to sell in Europe, you need to have labels in the local languages. There are ways to make it not too expensive. You could have something a sticker you put on the packaging, or it can be a flyer you put with the product. Some are a bit borderline, so it depends. If you're selling nutriments or health product, that could be a touchy subject. If it's like general products, my recommendation is always put as one of the pictures on your listing, your labels or the instruction manual, so that at least you can say no, but actually you've bought from it and you've got access to that documentation. So at least that's a workaround. In terms of if a legal team had to look at it, no, probably they would push you to have really on the packaging itself all the details. The fact is, for consumers, if you put yourself in the feet of the customer, having documentation in your own language is much nicer than having that in English or very poorly translated, right, in your own language.
All right, great stuff. Thanks. Okay, so let's keep going. Is any other questions, guys? Feel free to drop it in the chat. And I saw that there were a lot of questions submitted earlier, and Jérôme and I we took a look through those. Jérôme, did you want to address some of those pre-submitted questions now?
Yeah, there was a few of the question was a lot about Europe and about the VAT and how you file that. So in all of those questions, because sometimes even after webinar, it's still a bit confused. My recommendation is really try to talk to. There are a lot of companies which provide good services. Is go and have a talk with someone on how they can help you expand into Europe, because the VAT part and the fiscal part is the first sort of building block. You need to have in control, and like I said, because it takes some time, you need to really anticipate. It's like if you want to be selling for Black Friday this year, you need to do it now, right? Because otherwise you won't be in time. And like November, December, or even October, the stocks start to pile up, and Amazon's got some restrictions, so you want to be earlier enough to have your products there. So yeah, do take a lot of time.
Yeah, okay, excellent. We have a couple more questions. Konkip, in the services you offer to sellers, can they be custom made to the needs of the seller?
Of course, like it's our service is more about value add than really like it's like Amazon is each time we open a new account, we have new issues and new questions. So obviously the principles we have a growth model basically where we start with strategy, looking at okay, what type of products, where we want to start, as I said, which fulfillment method, what buy box issues, distribution issues. That's strategy. Then looking at okay, operations, who's going to do what. And then the two different things we look at is conversion rate, so your content. Do you have a good content to address your customers throughout Europe? Is it localized? Is it translated? And the last thing is, okay, advertising, bringing traffic to your pages once they're really good. So the principles are the same for everyone. Like to be successful, you need to have a great conversion rate. If you want one metric or one takeaway, that's one. So now how we get to that will be different for every seller. And in this sense, it's really custom made. Now, one strong thing is that we work with brand owners, because on Amazon today, if you're not a brand owner and you're not brand registered, it's very difficult to push your products. It's only a price war, and we're not very interested to go into only price war, but building brands.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so let's keep going. We have several other questions as well. And is there anything else in the slides you'd like to show, or should I remove this slideshow?
Yeah, you can remove.
Okay. All right. So Sandeep had a follow-up question. Do we need to file any other returns in any country other than the quarterly return / monthly return in Germany?
Well, it depends where your stock is located. If your stock is only in Germany, you will have only to file those in Germany. If your stock is in other countries, you will have to file in other countries. Now, in Germany, it's not quarterly; it's monthly. If I understand well, returns. If you're talking about like VAT compliance, that depends on where your stock is.
Okay, excellent. And next question is from Bennett. If you use pan-EU and send goods to fulfillment centers in EU under DDP basis, that's delivered duties paid from China, can we claim back VAT from the relevant EU country?
So that's a wonderful VAT question. Thank you very much for that. VAT is so fun. So the answer is yes. What happens is that's why you need the URI number and you need to have the VAT number. It's because when you pay the VAT, the import VAT, it will be linked to your VAT number. So what you will have paid will be deducted from what you're receiving from the customer. So what happens is when you will be doing your filing or your compliance for the VAT side, the government will see that on your VAT number you paid a VAT on your import, right? And they will see you're getting VAT from end customers. So what happens is Amazon will be paying that amount to the government, and you will have to file to say, hey, the government, you owe me some money because I paid you a VAT, which should be given back to me. So yes, you can claim that back. And that's why it's very important to make sure that you have the URI number and the VAT number before you do the imports, so that they can reconcile your import with your VAT number.
Okay, excellent. And Sandeep followed.
Yeah, that was to his former question. So yes, so in that case, it's if you're so specifically from 1st of July, if your stock is only in Germany, your reconciliation will be only in Germany. Now, that works only if you didn't if you had to create VAT numbers in other countries, you can't give up on them. It's like you have those VAT numbers and you still need to file compliant. That's the problem, is once the government has you in the list, you still have to, even if it's zero, you still need to file for that. So the one-stop shop thing will start only for the new ones starting from July 1st.
Okay. And Jérôme, I'm curious, in terms of the filing and like the paperwork and the whole number of man hours, how does that look like for, let's say for Germany, if you got to do this monthly? How does that look like for the average seller?
So if you're using a company such as us, it's like there's zero time, because you give access to your seller account, they will download the reports and do the filing for you. So that's 0 time. So it's actually quite simple to do that. And one note is that sometimes Amazon will offer you that for free for 1 year. So my recommendation is not to do that. It's like they go through a good company, which is called Avalara, but it's in a way which is free, which doesn't make sense. And most of the time you end up with something which is not really well filed, and you have to take over after some time. And it's like, you don't want to have that happen because it's a mess. And for me, I'm not saying that because that's a service we've included. It's just because, the cost to do that properly is not super high. And don't anything which is free, you need to be careful with Amazon because it's in their benefit, right? And one of my strategy teachers said always, if it's free, you're the product. So it's like they are trying to get you, and like they're making it super easy, but there's nothing easy about VAT. So
yeah.
And Amazon not being a super themselves, when you're a vendor and you're selling with them, they have a lot of issues themselves with VAT. So it's not a good idea to let them handle it.
Yeah. And if I understand correctly, you said roughly for one country, let's say for Germany, it would cost about 1,000 euros per year to.
It would, so Germany is more expensive. So you would be more around the 2,500 a year. Some countries are easier, then it's cheaper. So that's sort of the roundabout figure.
Okay, great. Thanks for clarifying that. So we have some more questions. Let's keep going, guys. We have a couple minutes left. Concave asks, do you help brands from hijackers, and how?
We don't specifically work on hijackers. We help brands grow. And as we help them grow, if they have issues with hijackers, we take care of that. We've got a legal side, and we've got lawyers which are specifically good on e-commerce. And then, we do what it takes to get them removed. But it's not something we focus on specifically. Sometimes, depending on how you set up your products, how you certify your product, it can be very complicated issues, and it's difficult to give a promise without it takes a lot of time. That's for sure.
Okay, great, thanks. And our next question from Lindsay: if you are selling from UK Amazon only, and a customer orders from an EU country, will there be extra taxes for either seller or customer?
That's a very good question. So normally, yes, there should be. So thank you for that very nice question. I believe I think you can't really now at this stage. I think it's blocking you because there is an issue of you need to pay customs at one point, and you need to have someone who's responsible for importing the product into Europe. So, you have to have a fiscal representative or a brand representative. So Amazon you can pay now Amazon for them to do it. So if the product is EU based and was from the EU, it should be possible because there's no customs. If the product is China based or outside of EU based, it's probably complicated. To be fair, all the brands we're working with, we're getting them to have stock in the different countries. So I think you're going into a lot of trouble if you're trying to fulfill EU orders from Amazon UK.
Okay.
But if you have if you want me to dig, just ping me afterwards. We can dig into exactly if that's allowed. I believe there's limitation today to do that.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. We have a couple more questions left, but I wanted to offer an opportunity for you guys because Jérôme has very generously offered complimentary 15-minute consultation call with e-commerce if you're interested in learning more. So did you want to talk a little bit about that? And then I'm going to share the link in the chat for people that are interested.
So we specialize in helping brands grow on Amazon in Europe, but also outside of Europe. But so if you're a brand, you've registered your brand and you want to have more advice of, okay, on all those issues about VAT, about how to expand, like you go onto www.ecommerce.com/calendar, and you can book time with one of our experts who will go through it and see if there's anything we can help you with, or how we can take some of your specific issues and be of help. What we like, the things which are complicated is if you don't own a brand and you've got hijackers problem or a very specific problem, it can be complicated sometimes to like find a way to help you specifically. So for us, it's like the if you don't have a brand, like think about registering a brand and to be able to have much more power on Amazon. Otherwise, it's very difficult to find your way through the Amazon maze.
Okay, excellent. So definitely check out this opportunity to connect more with Jérôme and his team if you'd like some help expanding to Amazon EU. And then the URL is e-comas.com/calendar. And then I've shared the link in the chat as well. We have a couple more questions before we're out of time, guys. So Concip asks, is there any difference if you register now for one-stop shop or after July 1st?
Not any difference I know of. The only thing is that make sure you don't go through any threshold before the 1st of July, because then I don't know what happens if it triggers the fact of having to register VAT numbers. So just to be on the safe side, try to register as soon as you can. That would be my recommendation.
Okay, great. And I want to get to some of the pre-submitted questions, so I'm going to read off a couple with our remaining time left. One person had a question about expanding to EU in terms of how will I know if what I am selling in the US will work in the European markets? Jérôme, any advice to them?
Wow, great question. My gut feeling, or like a simple response, is like look at what's happening on the European market. Make a research on Amazon.co.uk, Amazon.de. Look for the products. Look for similar products, and if you see you've got tools like such as Helium 10, which will give you an idea of how big the market is for those products, and that's the first thing you have to look at. Second step is, talk to an agency like e-commerce, and we'll help you understand the potential and what's behind it, the number of demands for the researchers for keywords around your products. That gives you an idea.
Perfect. I want to talk a little bit about logistics, because it seems like 2021 logistics is really the $1 million question, whether you're going to make it or break it this year. How is it looking in terms of the Amazon, the IPI restrictions in Europe? And then would you recommend any 3PLs to kind of circumvent these low restock limits? What are your thoughts on that?
That's indeed the $1 million question. Clearly, Europe is lagging behind in terms of logistics and logistics suppliers in the same way you have that in the US. Why? Is because it's very complicated to do logistics between countries. Like having one country within one country is like you can optimize it. As soon as you have another country, it's another legal entity. And so it's today, this service is just growing. So we have partners also which do 3PL. So we're trying to address that demand specifically by exactly as you say, is that if and specifically after COVID, Amazon, I think, is saturated. So that they've said with IPI scores, and specifically in Europe, they've started to ask people to decrease right now. So you're right. In those instances, then you can say, okay, having a stock and having, for example, a warehouse in Holland, like we have with one of our partners, is a good way, because your container arrives through Rotterdam and you put it in a bonded warehouse, so you don't have to pay customs, for example. So there are ways to go through that. And if you have questions, just come to us. We'll see how we can help.
Excellent. All right. So we are at the hour. So thank you, Jérôme, for this
Pleasure.
excellent value-packed session on how to expand your business to Amazon EU. We cover a lot of the nitty-gritty when it comes to VAT, when it comes to AORI. I love your breakdown between like the short-term strategy with Italy versus the long term with UK and Germany. So you got the whole base covered. I'm curious, I love the 80-20 rule. If you were to apply the 80-20 rule, Jérôme, with everything that we covered today, what would be your number one recommendation to our audience so that they can expand successfully into Amazon Europe?
Yeah, from my experience and what we say to most of the brands is like, don't look at short term with Europe. Europe is a mid to long term thing, in the sense that, as I said, you have to build one country after. It's a bit painful, but it's like once you're there, and it's very difficult to get you out. So take your time, build it, and plan it, and just talk to people. And if you have not enough resources in US and so on, you can find an agency like us, or you can find someone. But it's like, invest in the time and it will pay off.
Perfect. Invest in the time and it will pay off. Perfect. All right, Jérôme, what's the best way to connect for people that want to learn more? Should they book a call with you, or did you want to share some contact info?
Yeah, so you have the contacts if you go on e-commerce /calendar, you've got contacts to our team, or you can go to ecommerce.com and ping us directly from there, and we'll be there. We've got we're very active on LinkedIn, on Facebook, so all those are great ways to get in touch with us.
Perfect. All right. Thank you again, Jérôme, and thank you everybody for joining us. And if this has been helpful, would you please hit subscribe or hit that like button? This will help us be able to connect to even more people and to help even more sellers. All right. So thank you everybody for joining us, and we will see you at the next session. All right. Bye, everyone.
Thank you, Gary. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.